Live here, and let me start recording this. You know what that means. It means it's going to be a podcast, I guess. Live here, let me.
It's asking me to continue. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know who all will show up. We'll give them a couple more minutes to get on here, and then
we'll take a while.
Oh, I don't know. You never can tell. People are doing all kinds of shit these days. I think once everybody got kicked off and deplatformed, I know viewership dropped like 50% on my YouTube channel for every video. Like people were just gone. Just
really?
Oh, fuck yeah. Of course, I also pissed off the Nazis, and but they'll get over it.
Did you get on the Rumble? Are you rumbling yet?
No.
Rumble is the alternate to YouTube, and that's where I'm. That's where I watched Dinesh D'Souza, Hannity.
Oh, really?
Dan Bongino, all those guys. They all have Rumble channels.
Oh, well, I'm gonna get a Rumble then.
Yeah, just go to rumble.com and look, and then you can. It's the alternate for the news now because Fox News is all fucked up. So what you do is you subscribe to all your favorite people that are on Rumble or whatever, and then they, who do I got? I've got the two black gals, Diamond and Silk. I got them.
Yeah.
I've got Dinesh D'Souza. I've got Dan Bongino, Hannity, and one other fella.
Oh, I see them all.
Get all that. And then the other thing is I'm using Telegram now.
Yeah, I'm on Telegram.
Well, Telegram's the same way. I got Dinesh D'Souza and
I just can't.
Trump Jr. and all.
I got to turn the notifications for that off because there's just so many of them. They'll eat your phone. My phone will never stop ringing.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me do something real quick. I'm gonna get this started.
Go for it.
Get my headphones on, so maybe I can eliminate a little bit of that background noise.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Man, that sounds better, huh? All right, the Ballad of the Victory.
I got my hair days from the VA day before yesterday.
My stepdad got his too. They're nice.
They are really nice, man. Hooks up to my phone. They're all Bluetooth and everything.
Yes, Grants are the same way.
I guess they're really nice.
I don't think I want to get those. Not yet, anyway.
It only took like a month and a half. It didn't take that long.
Really?
They said it used to take like 2 or 3 months. Now it's about a month and a half.
I need to find out where the VA is up here. I got to move everything from Muskogee up here to Minnesota. Because, they'll take care of you, but to get into the doctors and everything, you got to move all your records and stuff from the headquarters or whatever state you're in. But you're right there you're near Austin's. Austin's where Jim goes. My cousin Jim, his lungs, everybody said, no chemical weapons in Iraq, but his lungs, and he's just ruined. He is physically ruined.
Wow.
From burning them.
Oh yeah, dude.
Fuckers. Everybody denying it, but whatever. Okay, so we're streaming live on YouTube. We're recording. We're going to talk about the Victory Bringer tonight. And I want to read the intro to this because there's some interesting comments about it that are fairly relevant to today. The Sigurdrifa Mall immediately follows the Fafnir Mall and the Codex Regius without any indication of a break and without separate title, and is unquestionably the most chaotic of all the poems in the Edda collection. Now, whenever you start seeing that kind of stuff, there's been a tendency amongst heathens for a long time now to question the legitimacy of even paying attention to it. Because, well, there's a little bit of chaos. It may have been hampered, it may have been done. But I think there's a method in that madness that's relevant for today. See, the end of it has been lost entirely, for the 5th folio of 8 sheets is missing from Regius, the Codex Regius. So that's something that we should be looking for. So somewhere in this world, there is a 5th folio of 8 sheets from the Codex Regius that has who knows what kind of information. but it may revolve around um, Brunhild and Sigurd. And that would be a real important thing to find. Who knows where it went, where it disappeared, or when, or any of that other stuff. But it's there. It's probably in the Vatican Library. The gap coming after the first line of stanza 29 of this poem, that stanza has been completed, and 8 more have been added from much later paper manuscripts. So they found information were other things to look at. But even so, the conclusion of the poem is in obscurity. So we're left with a tale that we know part of it is missing. Other parts have been written in from other sources that we don't know where those are. And now the conclusion of the poem is in obscurity. That means to me, we're writing our own tale. We're in such a time now as heroes are born and made and sacrificed that we're at that point where we got to figure out the points of what's been written, so we might carry on our own tale to make it relevant and worthy of our grandchildren to remember. Who knows what kind of world they'll be facing. Properly speaking, however, the strange conglomeration of stanzas which the compiler of the collection has left for us, and which, in much the same general form, seems to have been lain before the authors of the Volsung saga, in which 18 of its stanzas are quoted, and it's not a poem at all. Even its customary title is an absurd error. The mistake made by the annotator in thinking that the epithet Sigurdrifa rightly applied to Brunhilde as a bringer of victory was a proper name has been explained and commented on the Fafnismal. So they won't even argue about the name of it. The Ballad of the Victory Bringer, Brunhilde, the bringer of victory. But Brunhilde is the name of a Valkyrie. Sigurdrifa is another name. That's the name of the lady we're talking about here. Brunhilde and Sigurd, that's kind of been put together since somebody created Wagner's Siegfried, his epic tale. The hell was the name of it? It's written down here later. But Sigurdrifa is actually the name of this woman, not Brunhilde. But it's very hard to explain that to people. Anyway, even apart from the title, however, the Sigurdrifa Mall has little claim to be regarded as a distinct poem. So it's a part of a bigger tale, nor is there any indication that the compiler did so regard it. So whoever put it together didn't think of it as a part of something different either. And yet it comes to us as a separate tale all by itself. I have to ask myself, why is that? Why is that? Why are we getting that portion of information? Why is that part of this coming in a different tale? It's maybe the gods knew we needed a commercial break. Who fucking knows? But we've got a body of information here we need to analyze. And we need to take a look at it in such a manner as, why the fuck do I need to know that? Why is that important? Is that relevant or pertinent to the mission? How's this going to help me put food on the table? All of that stuff is relevant in everything that we're doing with regards to the spirituality. So we have the Daltha Sinfiolta, the Regensmal, the Fafnismal, and the Sigurdrifa are all one tale, but they've been broken down into bite-sized chunks, and each chunk has a lesson. The Regensmal has a lesson, Fafnismal has a lesson, and the Sigurdrifa each have a different lesson about the development of a man, about the growth of a man. They represent neither one poem nor three distinct poems, and the division in titles, which have been almost universally adopted by editors, are both arbitrary, and they say here misleading. I disagree vehemently. The Sigurdrifa suggestion, as we now have it, is an extraordinary piece of patchwork, and that's the problem. When the editors start putting these comments into something that we consider our lore, there's a real strong possibility to say, well, I don't need to pay attention to this. This is really not that important. This is not. And yet it's vitally important, as we'll get into it and see. He goes through a real distinct, this stanza comes from over here and this stanza comes from over here. Okay, why would that happen? Why would somebody do that? Would they do that to mislead, or would they do that to create a narrative? It's no different than the news of today. It's the same thing. These tales put down on paper, some of the very first pieces of prose literature in the Western world, they're put together in such a manner that there's a reason for that. Now, Is it a reason we can use? I think it is. But it's so we start off with at the end of the Five Small. So the Reagan's Mall and the Five Small. Reagan's Mall is about unlearning all of the dumb shit you grew up with. Anytime a man becomes a man, there's a certain amount of information he's going to look at and realize it's no longer relevant to how he operates in the world. He's going to make that decision that takes him out of the safety net of just existing and in mother and father's love, right? In my own example, it was my father bitching about this, bitching about that, always bitching about work, bitching about, and I grew up hearing that every day. This is the learning that I learned. He hated this, he hated that. He didn't want to watch TV shows that had canned laughter. He hated Walter Cronkite. He hated Elvis Presley. You know, just bitching about things all the time. This was how I was raised. This is the body of knowledge. I grew up looking at this grown man, thinking that's what a man is. When I became a man and started doing all of the things he couldn't do, I began to gain a new body of knowledge. He was a diabetic from the time he was 12. He couldn't join the army. He always talked about it, so I went and did it. I went and did all of the things he couldn't do. And I developed a new set of perceptions. The Reagan's Mall is real clear about that. Here's this individual who is considered to be a wise and powerful, crafty old wizard. Everybody's in awe of him, a little bit scared of him because he's been around a long time. He starts teaching Sigurd that Fafnir is really his enemy. Fafnir ain't got nothing to fucking do with him. But Reagan keeps putting on this idea, well, if you were really loyal to me, you would kill that dragon for me. And he goes through all of these things. Sigurd takes vengeance for his father, and Reagan's pushing on when they get on the boat. Reagan's all of a sudden scared of the stormy sea. They go to find Fafnir. Reagan hides behind the bush. So this brave man all of a sudden turns into a coward. But he's been forcing all of these old biases, all of these old hates, all of these old angers that have not a fucking thing to do with Sigurd and his future, and telling him that's how the world is. All the while planning to discard him as soon as it was beneficial to him. It's one of the first lessons of growing up and becoming a man. Some of that shit we think is true ain't true. Some of that shit we got to grow up and realize, maybe it really ain't that way. When I see people naturally gravitate towards the ideas that most support the righteous indignation they want to feel towards any kind of idea, I see that at work. I see it at work with Antifa. I see it at work with much of the far alt-right. I see it at work with National Socialists. I see it at work with communists. I see people naturally gravitating. And if some 5 or 10 people agree with them, well, all of a sudden they're right. Well, there's fucking 7 billion people in the fucking world, and having 10 people say you're right doesn't mean a fucking thing. So I see that narrative playing out on a grand scale. So the relevance of that tale being separated becomes very clear to me very quickly. The Fafnir Small is he actually goes through with it. He actually sticks to his guns. He actually hangs on to that last thread of hope that this man that raised me and done all this stuff, maybe he is right. Maybe I need to kill this dragon. He figures out a way to do it. He kills the dragon, and the dragon looks at him and says, "Why did you kill me? Why have you taken my life?" And it's a good question to ask. Why did you kill him? Why is that life lost? Because that man over there said that you were my enemy. You and I both know what that fucking feels like. Now we got to deal with that shit. Reagan or Sigurd gets this understanding when he tastes the blood of that victory, of that death, of that kill. When he tastes the blood of the heart, he then learns the language of the birds. There is a moment. I suppose to a greater or lesser degree, there comes a moment in every man's life when he begins to taste of something different, and he begins to look and question, maybe this ain't what I thought it was. For some men, it's having a bunch of money in the bank. For some men, it's graduating some course in the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or the Marine Corps or the Coast Guard. So for some men, it's becoming of service to something. For some men, it's retiring. For some men, it's the fancy house and the car. And some men, it's a happy wife. But there comes a point when we begin to look at the body of knowledge we've been operating with, and we get a taste of something better. We get a taste of something that maybe it's not got me quite so wound up all the fucking time. And we'll begin to crave that. A lot of people call it a midlife crisis. But there ends the story of the fat and small. Also, another stage in the development of a man, this being the actual action of unlearning and learning new things to become something more. And he does become something more. He has to kill Reagan. He has to sever the ties with all of that horseshit he was taught, like we see going around on social media these days, these people that believe the political diatribe of the various political ideologies of the world, severing that to take his fortune and go his own way. He understands the language of the birds. Now, that is no small thing, the understanding the language of the birds, because the birds understand the flows of energy across the surface of this world. You can take a bird that migrates 2,000 miles, take him to the other side of the continent, release him, that son of a bitch will migrate right exactly where he's supposed to go, and then come back next spring to where he needs to be. They understand something more than we do. Odin has Hugin and Munin. There is stories in Sumerian tales of men and gods that understand the language of the birds. It happens all across the world. There's something mystery about this. There's something about understanding the nature of the world we live in. He steps away from this thought process that created an individual willing to kill this dragon. He severed the ties of the teachings he'd been taught, and he began to understand his place in the world. And then fortune became his. And there's a scene in that tale where his horse refuses to move without him. And that's a real important scene too. That is the teamwork of a man and an animal. That is Ewas. That is the horse. That is so very special and important when you begin to understand where you're at and things begin to work in your favor in the natural world. Sometimes it means just letting go of a lot of shit. Now, the Ballad of Sigdrifa, the Victory Bringer, is about a woman, because this is one of the most important things men may ever have to understand, is the role of a woman in his life. Now, I've seen recently a denial of the masculine and feminine side of a man. I don't know that I necessarily deny it, but I do admit that it has, the understanding of it has been corrupted, because I don't think people understand that when a man is in a mood, when he is in a bad mood, when he is in a good mood, he is in a realm of emotional being that is exclusively the realm of women. And we have little to no control over it, but we are given permission to be angry. And that's how I can't be. If I'm angry in my home, I create pain. And that's not what we want to go for. So we've got to begin to understand our ability to handle these things. What's being manipulated, like many other things about the human condition and psyche, is how much of that I need to incorporate into my being. That's what's being manipulated. So you end up having men wearing dresses talking in front of the little kids at a library or some shit. They got in touch with their feminine side, I guess. I don't know. That's retarded. That's by no stretch of the imagination a valid point to be made concerning a man's ability to understand who he is. Because I don't care if you lose a child, if you lose a parent, if you lose a spouse, you're going to cry about it. I don't care how bad a motherfucker you are. There's going to be some point where you got to wipe a tear away from your eye. That's just how life is. At some point, you're going to be scared for your life. I've been scared for mine a couple of times. You don't just suck it up and drive on sometimes. Sometimes you got to sit down for a minute. But here in this one right here, we get a real clear understanding of how these incorporations of a man and a woman work. Sigurd rode up on Hinderfjall and turned southward toward the land of the Franks. On the mountain he saw a great light, as if fire were burning, and the glow reached up to heaven. And when he came thither, there stood a tower of shields, and above it was a banner. Now, these are things any man would recognize. A bright light, a tower of shields, a great banner. This is something to check out. Sigurd went into the shield tower and saw that a man lay there sleeping with all his war weapons. First, he took the helm from his head, and that's so very important because what he got from Fafnir that he decided to keep was the helm of awe. So if we're walking around with the helm of awe over our heads, the helm of awe is one of those things, it's like a guy walking around with an angry look on his face. If a guy's walking down the street talking to himself with an angry look on his face, for all intents and purposes, he is in full connection with some of the deeper parts of his psychology that are not exactly positive. And he has that image about him that says, what? Don't leave me alone. Don't talk to me. It's like coming into work on Monday morning, pissed off that you got to be there. Ugly growl, sad, mean look on your face. Leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. That is psychologically the helm of awe. And when you're wearing that, when a man is completely in that mindset, he is in a mood and he is keeping everybody else away from him. Because he doesn't want to deal with them. He doesn't know how to deal with them, doesn't know why, and a lot of other things. Everyone in that time is an enemy. And it's a fairly savage and primal state of being. Now, when he took the helm from his head, then he saw that it was a woman. And that's the real differentiation there. Yeah, there are moments when we can sit there and decide to feed off of the energies that come with negative emotions. When we can see our bodies don't know that what our mind is thinking isn't really happening. It floods our bodies with chemicals. People get angry and they feed on that adrenaline and the endorphins and they work themselves into a tizzy and they get all bent out of shape and butt hurt. And everybody's an enemy and everybody's going to get a tongue lashing. When he took that off, then he saw it was a woman. We've got to pay attention to that kind of mindset because it's very hard. That kind of mindset's acceptable in this world. To be the angry white man or angry black man or angry man at all, bitching about this or bitching about that, people will listen to that. People expect that. People want to see that because then they understand that the feelings they're feeling, well, I could feel that way too. This is good. All right, we're all going to feel this way. Yay. And nothing happens. And all we see are enemies. And then what do we got? Then we got a bunch of people sitting around on their couch bitching at the TV or surfing the internet, bitching about shit they see, not aware that they're completely involved in a mindset that will do them no good whatsoever and quite likely will cause sickness. Ask anybody that deals with ulcers. So the male coat was as fast as if it had grown to the flesh. So you can't really tell where the person begins and the defense stops. That's a real important clue. Then he cut the male coat. He cut the male coat from the head opening downwards and out to both the armholes. Then he took the male coat from her and she awoke and sat up and saw Sigurd and said, that process is going to be a process every man has to deal with every woman. Every woman, I can't tell you a woman that I know that hasn't been abused in some way in this world. And every one of them wears armor about themselves. At some point, we got to figure out where that armor stops and where the person begins and help remove that so she might sit up and awake. Quit laughing at me.
No, I just sat up.
Yeah, she just sat up. See, I cut it away from her. So my bullshit detector is in full operation tonight. Anyway, this is something that we all have to contend with. There are all kinds of books written about it, about how a man might do that. But first, one of the things we got to realize, if we don't know who we are or where we're at, we're never going to figure out where we need to fucking go. If they drop you off in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a map and a compass and they say, go here, if you don't have the tools necessary to figure out where you're at, you're not going to get there. And sometimes, I promise you, they can put you out there and give you the tools, and you can still fuck it up. Please, I promise. But this is where the magic really begins to happen in this tale. What bit through the burning? How was broken my sleep? Who made me free of the fetter's pale? Now we get to where she got that way later on in the tale, and that's also very interesting and very important and pertinent to a woman's life. He answered, Sigmund's son, with Sigurd's sword, that late with flesh hath fed the ravens. So he's like, here I am. I'm full on me. I am a warrior. There ain't no doubt about it. I come from a proud lineage. Sigurd sat beside her and asked her name. She took a horn full of mead and gave him a memory drop. There are a few things that will remind a man of who he is or who he is not. Sitting down next to a woman, she will remind him of what he is or is not. I find a great deal of, I think it a very confusing state of being for most men to sit next to a woman and expect her to tell him how much of a man he is. And then several hours later, when she's messed up breakfast or hasn't made lunch or made him a sandwich, cuss her out like she's a piece lower than a piece of dog shit and still expect her to tell him how much of a man he is. And this is the confusing state of being for most men in America today. They haven't figured that part of it out. They're still waiting on her to give him a memory drop. Now, she doesn't just say, okay, you're a man, you know. First, she invites the divine into this conversation with this favorite prayer. Hail the day, hail sons of day, hail and night and her daughter now. Look on us here with loving eyes that waiting we victory win. Waiting, that's an interesting point. Hail to the gods, ye goddesses, hail, and all the generous earth. Give to us wisdom and goodly speech and healing hands lifelong. That's an important thing to remember. First, we're going to wait. We're not going to get it immediately. We're not going to immediately step into this enlightened state of being. We're not going to immediately begin to be aware, but we are going to ask from the generous earth, from which everything we want to succeed with comes from, that we get wisdom. Maybe even if it is just a second before we say something fucking stupid, for that goodly speech. And healing hands lifelong. The touch of someone that loves you is by far one of the most important things we get to experience. Holding the hands of our children, holding the hands of our lovers in our arms, giving our parents a hug. These are the wonderful things. These are the healing hands lifelong. In a hug, there's the immediate relief of stress. And that would be given wisdom, goodly speech, and healing hands lifelong. That's an important distinction. That goes on in your home. Because if you walk out in the world as it is today with that kind of mindset, they'll eat your fucking lunch. But in your home, where we need to start, this is where we create the understanding of what is important in this world. This is where we create the understanding of what is worth fighting for. Right there, with wisdom, goodly speech, and healing hands lifelong in our homes. Long did I sleep, my slumber was long, and long are the griefs of life. Carry that shit a long time if you want to. There is a tale, I've heard it repeated many times amongst the self-empowerment, self-improvement crowd, about two monks walking along, an older monk and a younger monk, and they came to a stream. The monks, they take these vows of chastity and many other things. They're not supposed to touch a woman. And there was a young maid standing at the edge of the stream, and the older monk picked her up and carried her across the stream. The younger monk didn't say nothing, and they walked on for miles and miles. And finally, the younger monk said, "Why did you carry that woman across the stream?" He said, "You're still carrying her? I put her down miles ago." And that's kind of the way it is with the long or the griefs of life. Sometimes we've got to set that stuff down, because in our sleep, in our slumber, when we're not paying attention to what's going on in the world around us, or not paying attention to the people most important in our life, because we tend to be focused on those griefs that we carry, those things you think about before you go to sleep at night. I could have done that better. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I really feel bad about it. Man, damn, that was dumb of me to fucking do. When we begin to cultivate wisdom, goodly speech, and healing hands lifelong, we develop the tools necessary to let some of those old pains go, to let those old thoughts fall away, to finally sit up and awaken and be fully present in this moment. Now, the rest of that is Odin decreed that I could not break the heavy spells of sleep. Her name was Sigurdrifa. She was a Valkyrie. She said that two kings fought in battle. One was called Yamogunnar, an old man but a mighty warrior, and Odin had promised him the victory. And the other was Agnar, brother of Altha. None he found who fain would shield him. So he found himself out there by himself, giving it his all. How many times have we all hoped that sometime when we're out there doing our level best, breaking our back, giving it everything we got, sometimes by ourselves, where somebody going to come help me in this or not? Well, maybe not, maybe so. Sigurdrifa, the victory bringer, slew Hjálmgunnar in the battle, and Odin pricked her with the sleep thorn in punishment for this, and said that she should never thereafter win victory in battle, but that she should be wedded. And I said to him that I had made a vow in my turn, that I would never marry a man who knew the meaning of fear. Sigurd answered and asked her to teach him wisdom if she knew of what took place in all the worlds. So the most important relationship that a young girl is ever going to have is that with her father. She is the first man she will love. And if that delicate balance is broken or damaged in any way, and a father fails to understand his responsibilities to the young life that's been gifted to him, it will cause pain, an inordinate amount of pain. And it's almost as if she is pricked with a sleep thorn in punishment. And they will sleep, and they will put their emotions to sleep, and they will create that shield, and they will put a fire around their heart, and they will do many things because the very first relationship they ever had hurt them. And it's a very important thing to understand. And most men fail to do it because we don't understand who we are. Well, we don't want to incorporate the masculine and feminine in our life, but that little girl, I'll treat her like the boys and just whip her the same way and treat her the same way and be mean to her and blah, blah, blah. Now what? Because we fail to understand that maybe there is some softer side to us that allows us to connect and talk to this little girl and handle her in a different manner than you handle the boys. People hate it when I say that. You can't treat the girls and the boys different. I'm telling you right now, as a father that's got two of them that are already grown and another one right now, if you don't treat them different, you're going to fuck up. There's a very special relationship that has to be happening there. Odin pricked her with a sleep thorn in punishment for this. And for many young ladies, I'm sure when they go to therapy, they will feel like they've been punished their lives simply for existing because they did something their daddy didn't like. And that's a failure on our part. That's a failure of men to fail to create the environment where a woman might express the beauty of who she is. And that's a hell of a charge for me to make on men. And most men shy away from it and are fucking scared of it. As well they should be, because most of them that I see right here talking about being men aren't qualified to carry my fucking water bucket and sure as hell can't fucking do it. It gets me fired up. That right there is causing more damage to our society than you can imagine. That right there, that father pricking her with a sleep thorn, putting these women, that's why they're marching in the streets with pink hair and dildos taped to their fucking head. Good night. If they had a dad that loved them and took care of them, that handled them and guided them with a firm hand and a loving and healing hands and goodly speech and wisdom, might be a big difference. But as it is, we rely on the church or the school to take care of that and give this instruction. And we kind of fill in the blanks along the way. That ain't the way it's always been. And we're going to have to come back from that. Now, in response to that pain, she decided she's never going to marry a man that knows the meaning of fear. Sigurd has got that part of it covered. That's a bad motherfucker. I don't care how you cover it. He can make his own sword and go out there and kill dragons and every goddamn thing else. He knows the language of the birds and he's got all kinds of money. Old boy's got it going on. So here we are. Biff has showed up in the house. So she brings him a memory drop. See, she brings him a beer. That's like a redneck joke. Since you is up, get me a beer. Beer I bring thee, tree of battle, mingled of strength and mighty fame, charms it holds and healing signs, spells full good and gladness rooms. Right there is the blessing of having a good woman in your life. If you figured out how to be a man, If you figured out how to stand up and not armchair quarterback the world where it needs to be masculine, but to stand up and like these chaps behind me, these were my great grandfather's chaps. And I say it many times, when he was riding on cattle drives from across West Texas to the Mexico railhead, he wasn't thinking about whether or not he was fucking man enough. I promise you. It was effortless masculinity. You become a man, you do the right thing, you stand up, you make a decision that allows you to step out into the world. When you finally have what it takes to walk across that fire and cut free the Bernie, look what she gives him. Look what she brings to his life. Look at the blessings that begin to happen when you begin to cultivate the confidence to have wisdom and goodly speech and healing hands. So you can be a dangerous man and still have healing hands. You can be a dangerous man and still be wise. Dangerous man is a guy that's got that shit under control. Jordan Peterson says it all the time. A man that's not dangerous, what the fuck is he? Does he have the courage to be wise? Does he have the courage to say goodly things? Does he have the courage to have healing hands with those that he loves? Probably not. Probably going to be full of ego, slight, shitty comments all the fucking time. But when you get it right, when you finally figure it out, and this lesson, I mean, think about this. Everybody says, oh, well, this is not put together right. I think it's put together perfectly for the day and age we live in. Beer I bring thee, tree of battle, mingle of strength and mighty fame, charms it holds and healing signs, spells full good and gladness rooms. Buddy, you got somebody like that in your life. If you've been man enough to find somebody to be like that in your life, or if you're a woman and you have found a man that you feel like he's worth that, fucking hang on. Winning runes learn if thou longest to win, and the runes on thy sword hilt write, some on the furrow and some on the flat, and twice shalt thou call on tear. Ale runes learn that with lies the wife of another betray not thy trust. That's an interesting one right there. So the winning runes, she's talking about where to write them on the sword. Where should we because everybody talks about the runes, and the runes are powerful things, and they're so multifaceted. It's not even funny. It's the collected knowledge of all of the ancestors that went on before Odin as he stood at the doorway of death and picked up all of this crystalline knowledge from his ancestors in the form of these symbols. The symbols are powerful things because they immediately create a reaction within the individual. For us, the runes come across in many different ways. Here's Sigdrifa, who's telling this person who has measured up to be the man she needs in her life. She's telling him about the winning runes. So he's fought his way. Think about that. So you've crawled and fought and beat and bit and clawed, got your way through to the top to become what you need to become, and finally found somebody. And here she is. First thing she's going to hand you, here are the winning runes. From here on out, it's going to be a man that's going to stand up tall, his head held high, take a confident step, and he's going to call twice on tear. On the sword hilt, on the furrow, and on the flat. Someday I'll figure all that out. Now the next one, the ale runes learn that with lies, the wife of another betray not thy trust. Don't get drunk and fuck around. I mean, that's just exactly what it means. Don't get drunk. These ale runes are powerful. They befuddle the senses. They confuse the mind. And the next thing you know, you've got someone there willing to do all this who is everything you expected to be, and you decide to go out and get drunk and get your blah, 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 or the woman goes out and does her thing because, well, she needs to feel alive and she's not being treated right. These ale runes are powerful things, and they're not always a good thing. Less good there lies in ale than most men believe. Says it in the Have 'em all. Ale runes learn that with lies, Lies, the wife of another, betray not thy trust. There's a special place in Helheim and in Misty Hell for the deceivers of men's wives. Now, there is some idea that Freya would be this loose and carefree, sleeping with seven dwarves type of woman. I don't know if you guys understand, but penicillin wasn't created until like the 40s or some bullshit. And if you were fucking around back then and got syphilis, you were going to die insane wearing a diaper. And nobody wanted that in the village. So if she was, that's why they had a temple prostitute. The temple prostitute was probably very clean, very pure, very well taken care of. Everybody, I got to go over there and take care of this. It's at the temple. It'll be halfway safe. It was allowed discretion. But just to be the way people were, you can't do that back then. You would end up with syphilis and you would go insane. Or something else. On the horn shall write, and the backs of thy hands, and need shall mark on thy nails. Now thieves on the nails. So it's telling you right there on the horn, right in the backs of thy hands. So on the horn and the backs of your hands, you write these ale runes. This is a protection. You're going to have a good time. People are going to drink. That's all there is to it. I like mead. There was a pair of mead I had at the Winter Nights one year that was fucking phenomenal. And I don't think I've ever tasted one that good since. But I didn't need to drink the whole gallon. And I sure as hell didn't need to be talking to any women, right? Period, plain and simple. So I didn't. These runes are there to also protect us from getting stupid. Thou shalt bless the draught and danger escape, and cast a leak in thy cup. For so I know thou never shalt see thy mead with evil mixed. Now, a leak in the cup was an age-old way to test for poison. And that's what that really means. And that's where that comes from. If you put a leak in the cup, it was supposed to mitigate whatever poison might kill you. Birth runes learn. If help thou wilt lend, the babe from the mother to bring, on thy palm shall write them, and round to thy joints, and ask the fates to aid. So on the palm, if you're going to help your wife with this babe, on the palm, around the joints, and ask the fates to aid. So there's an interesting thing there. What is that birth room? Probably Burkano, the birch goddess. What an interesting thing. Wave runes learn. Laguz. If wealth thou would shelter the sail steeds out on the sea, on the stem shalt thou write and the steering blade, and burn them into the oars. Though high be the breakers and black the waves, thou shalt safe the harbor see. So she's literally talking about using these runes as we work through the world. Now, here's a man that already understands the language of the birds. Now she's given him the knowledge to navigate the rest of the world in a safe manner, from the interpersonal relationship to actually traversing the planet. And that's an interesting thing for us to understand. Once he became man enough to be with a woman in his life, he begins to learn new things. There's another couple that does the same thing. When Balder dies and enters Helheim and Nanna joins him, they also go to the place from which the runes originated and begin a journey. And they begin a journey that's so profound that upon their return at the cycle of things, they are the boss. They do come out on top. And here's Brunhild teaching this man that she loves what it is. Branch runes learn. If a healer wouldst be and cure for wounds wouldst work, on the bark shalt thou write, and on trees that be with the boughs to the eastward bent. So she's telling you what kind of trees. Runes cut on the bark of trees. Such runes were believed to transfer sickness from the invalid to the tree. So some editors have changed Limruner, which means branch runes, to Leafruner, which means life runes, which I would tend to agree with, because the tree is this symbol of life. And I don't know how many different cultures around the world throughout time. Speech runes learn that none may seek to answer harm with hate. This is a part of the wisdom. She's reinforcing his ability to be wise. Well, he winds and weaves them all and sets them side by side at the judgment place where when justice there, the folk shall fairly win. This is Forseti's realm. This is the son of Balder and Nanna. This is his gift to the world. This is Odin and Frigga's grandson, Forseti, creating a just world where a man might understand that his speech might have a fair shot at justice. Something I think something that all of us kind of feel might be a far cry from now. Thought runes learned. If all shall think, thou art keenest minded of men. I got a bunch of them motherfuckers. We got to learn how to think. We gotta learn how to think too, don't we? We can't sit here and process the world as a 5-year-old child anymore if I'm a 50-year-old man. I got to process these thoughts in a different way. And therein lies the roots of wisdom. That gives me the ability to offer goodly speech. How am I thinking about this? Is this going to help someone come out of the depression or drug addiction or anything that they're dealing with? Them roped arranged, and them he wrote, and them in thought he made. Now that's Odin talking about the runes. Out of the draught that down had dropped from the head of Hythropnir and the horn of Hodrafnir. Roped is Odin. The draught apparently is the reference to the head of Mim, from which Odin derived his wisdom and magic. Hythropnir is light dropper, and Hodrafnir is treasure opener, seem to be names for Mim. So the light dropper and the treasure opener all come from wisdom. Mim, the head of Mimir, is this wisdom that Odin carries around with him to converse with, and discuss with. This is Plato and Socrates having a discussion of philosophies. This is the finest Stoic conversations you can imagine. This is looking at the grand thing and making a wise decision. And that is a treasure opener. And that's a real important thing for us to understand. As we cultivate wisdom, we begin to open treasures for ourselves. Age does it for most of us. As we get older, we begin to see, yeah, they're going to fuck that up. It'll be all right. They'll get through it. But if we can help them and guide this younger generation with a little bit of wisdom, we are truly opening a treasure. On the mountain he stood with Brimir's sword. On his head the helm he bore. Then first the head of Mim spoke forth, and the words of truth it told. He bade ride on the shields before the shining goddess, on Arvak's ear and on Alsvith's hoof, on the wheel of the car of Hrungnir's killer, on Sleipnir's teeth and the straps of the sledge, on the paws of the bear and on Bragi's tongue, on the wolf's claw buried in the eagle's beak, on bloody wings and the bridge's end, on freeing hands and helping footprints, on glass and on gold and on goodly charms, in wine and in beer and on well-loved seats, on Gungnir's point and on Granny's breast, on the nails of Norns and the night owl's beak. This is a wholly distinct rune chant. It is, Brimir is a giant, and why Odin would have his sword is unknown. But line 1 is unusually long in the original here. Shield, the shield is Valen, cooling, that stands in front of the sun. Okay? The Arvak is the early waker, and the Alsvith, the all-swift, the horses that draw the sun's car. Hrungnir is the slayer of the giant. Hrungnir was Thor. Harbulkjall, but Sleipnir is Odin's 8-legged horse. The sledge, perhaps the one made in Grimnismal, the god of poetry. So they're talking about all of that fancy stuff. So when Mim and Odin are talking, Mim's telling him, put these runes on the shield of the sun, on the ear and the hoof of the horses pulling the shield, the sun across the sky, so it shines on everybody. The light of the sun does not discriminate. It shines on us all. On Sleipnir's teeth, on the wheel of the car of Hrungnir's killer. Now that's the warder of men as he travels the world, raising the storm, as he travels to the east every day to clear a path for the rising of the sun to slay trolls. On the wheel of the cart, on the wheel of his chariot are runes. On Sleipnir's teeth, the animal, the 8-legged horse that Odin rides to cross all the different realms. On the paws of the bear and on Bragi's tongue. Bragi is the singer. He is Idun's husband, the god of poetry. And then it's tied into the world. The paws of the bear, the wolf's claw, the eagle's beak, on bloody wings and bridge's end, on freeing hands and helping footprints. So she's bringing him into the world. Not only is she giving him insight into the world and interpersonal relationships, she just showed him a hint of the divine. And I think that's all we really ever get with regards to our faith or our spirituality, is a hint at what the divine could mean. She just told him, those runes are carved there. Odin was told, carve them there by men. And so those runes are shining on us all. And they're also a part of the world we live in. They're part of the animals that we deal with and look at and respect in the ancient animistic totem kind of society from the late Paleolithic. And then bring it up to the today on glass and on gold and on goodly charms. So in the ancient world and in the modern world, there's some real importance there. They're all around us. She is incorporating him into the world that he lives in. As a couple, they're becoming a part of their environment, above, below, and the world. So I've talked for about an hour, and I think I'm gonna get done there. But that is some important stuff to learn. As it goes on with the runes, and it goes ever in depth, and I'll probably do the rest of it next week. But when we begin to look at the idea of masculine and feminine, and we want to focus entirely on masculinity, we are neglecting to understand what that complementing competing force brings into our life. And based on what I just read, something that's very pertinent for today, this is a part of my faith and spirituality. There's something important there that I might need to consider. So I don't think I'm going to take a red pill and try to figure out how to hustle women or understand where they are in this world. I'm going to figure out where I am and figure out who I am and what I'm confident, what I'm capable of, and what I'm competent at doing. I happen to be confident at this far more so than most that attempt this. So now that I've gone through show prep for the rest of the heathen community and everybody else, all the other talking heads, I'm going to call it quits. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Good.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, sir. You have a good one. See you next week.
All right, we'll see you, bud.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye. Renee, what are you doing?
Well, I'm getting real far on the WordPress, and I'm really happy about things that are happening there.
Good.
How about you?
I am, well, I was working, they had me on 10-hour days earlier this week, and that means I got to get up at 3:30 to be there at 5. And then I'm still trying to figure out how to work. And Monday, I have an interview for another job, and I've been trying to study this lean manufacturing horse shit. I'm just like, oh, fuck all this. I got an interview for a promotion at 9:15 on Monday morning.
Wow.
So I got to go to work. Yeah, I got just a lot of shit going on.
I have a comment that kind of came to me when you were talking about Sigritha.
Yes.
And when you're talking about like a father not doing what's necessary in order to make his daughter right in the world, it made me immediately think of childhood post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
And with that, with you, the abandonment or rejection of that daughter is more severe abuse than if you were to beat on the daughter. The daughter would rather be beaten on than be treated in that manner, is what I was wondering what you thought of that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's 100% correct. I think that's an absolute betrayal of our responsibility as men when we're gifted a child, specifically a girl child. When we fail in that responsibility, we're damaging not only the child, but future generations as well. I mean, think of all the harm that comes from that as it goes out into the world. There's a real responsibility we fail to understand when we do that shit. So yeah, when we do that kind of nonsense, we're really creating a huge issue. How do we heal from that? And that's the real question. I mean, I could point that shit out all day long. How do we heal from that? How do we create an environment where these women might feel free to heal from that? Well, the only thing that I could say is fucking start being men. You know, try to stand up. You know, I don't think Shanae's has any hesitation whatsoever to tell me I'm a fucking idiot if she needs to. You know, she's safe in that environment. And I think I'm confident enough to understand that it doesn't change her perception of me. And we, far too many men are afraid to do that. And I use the term men loosely. That's the only thing I can do. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, Renee? That's the only thing I can do. Now, as women, look at Mengloth creating the healing heel. the healing hill for women in pain. And then they go out to help others. And there's something very special about that. She lost an important masculine figure in her life, right? She creates this hill of healing for other women in pain where they might come and find relief. What and there's a big clue right there. When you do see these women that fight through this to become loving and kind and special and healthy and whole and healing, and they need to be celebrated. And it's something that this spirituality still needs a little work on, I think. But it's coming. I see it getting closer every day. I see it getting much closer.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Renee. Hey, I will. Tomorrow's Monday. Go out there, grab it by the nose, and whip its ass. I'm sure you'll knock it out of the park, Renee.
You too, Brian.
All right. We'll see you later. Bye bye.